I always believed the most dangerous thing about my family was their absolute refusal to hear the word no. That changed the night my brother treated my work laptop like a public kiosk. He claimed he only downloaded basic files, but the federal agents who eventually swarmed my lawn called it a Level 4 breach. I spent 33 years fixing their messes, but I realized too late that this was the one disaster I couldn't polite my way out of. My life in Maple Crossing was built on a foundation of aggressive normalcy. I was 33 years old, and if you asked anyone in our quiet and tree-lined cul-de-sac to describe me, they would likely use the word steady. I was the neighbor who brought the bins in before the garbage truck had even left the street. I was the woman who changed her oil on schedule and filed her taxes in February. In my family, I was the designated fixer, the one who absorbed the shock so everyone else could remain comfortably chaotic. I prided myself on that role. I wore it like armor, unaware that armor only works if the person standing behind you is not holding a knife. My job at Blue Harbor Risk Solutions was the centerpiece of this controlled existence. To my family, I was a glorified secretary who pushed paper for boring insurance people. They did not understand the nature of compliance documentation. They did not know that the files on my encrypted laptop contained data regarding international supply chains, restricted audits, and federal oversight metrics. I did not work for spies, but I worked adjacent to the kind of bureaucracy that could freeze assets or flag passports with a single keystroke. Because of this, I had rules. My home office was a sanctuary. The Wi-Fi password was 64 characters of gibberish that I kept on a laminated card in a locked drawer. When I worked from home, which was 3 days a week, the door remained closed. My husband, Evan, understood this. He worked in IT, or at least he dabbled in it, so he respected the sanctity of a secure network. Or so I told myself. It was a Sunday in late October when the cracks began to show. I had agreed to host a family dinner, a ritual I dreaded but could never quite refuse. My mother, Ellen, believed that physical proximity was the only metric of love. If we were not in the same room eating the same roast chicken, we were falling apart. The afternoon was gray and blustery, the kind of day that makes the indoors feel too warm and too small. By 5 p.m, my kitchen was crowded. My Aunt Dana was there, a woman who treated every surface in my home as a potential resting place for her half-finished glass of Chardonnay. My younger brother, Tyler, sat at the island, looking thin and restless. He was 29 and currently between opportunities, a phrase my mother used with a strained brightness that fooled no one. I was at the stove, managing the gravy, when Aunt Dana leaned over the counter. "Sarah, you really need to relax," she said, gesturing vaguely with her wine glass. "You are gripping that whisk like it owes you money." I forced a smile, the one I kept in reserve for family gatherings. "I just want everything to be ready on time." I said, "You work too hard." My mother chimed in from the table where she was folding napkins with unnecessary force, even on Sundays. "You never just sit down and be with us." I suppressed a sigh. "I am right here, Mom. I am literally cooking dinner for you." My eyes flicked to the hallway. The door to my office was closed, but not locked. I never locked it when I was home because I assumed the social contract of privacy was enough. It was a naive assumption for someone whose job was literally risk assessment. I needed to use the restroom, so I wiped my hands on a towel and stepped out of the kitchen. The hallway was dimmer than the kitchen, and as I turned the corner, I stopped. Tyler was standing 3 feet inside my office. He jumped when he saw me, his body jerking in a way that was too sharp, too guilty for a casual wanderer. He was near the desk where my work laptop sat docked, the lid closed, the sleep light pulsing a slow, white rhythm. "Hey," he said, his voice pitching up. I felt a cold prickle of irritation. "Tyler," I said, keeping my voice level, "you know I do not like people in there." He held up his hands, palms out, a gesture of surrender that felt rehearsed. I know. I was just looking for a charger. My phone is dead and Mom is driving me crazy about some job listing she sent me." I stared at him. "The outlet is in the kitchen, Ty," he laughed. a nervous, jagged sound. Yeah, I forgot. Chill out. Sarah, I did not touch your spy computer. I am not a spy, I said automatically. It is compliance data. Same difference, he muttered, pushing past me back toward the noisy warmth of the kitchen. You are so uptight. I stood there for a moment, looking at the desk. The laptop looked exactly as I had left it. The stack of notepads was square. The pens were aligned. I told myself I was being paranoid. Tyler was messy, aimless, and occasionally selfish, but he was not malicious. He was my little brother. He had taught me how to ride a bike when our father left. He used to save me the red Skittles because he knew they were my favorite. I closed the office door firmly, listening to the latch click, and went back to the kitchen to serve the chicken. I spent the rest of the evening smiling, nodding, and swallowing the tight knot of annoyance that sat in my chest like a stone. I told myself it was just one evening. I told myself that family was supposed to be messy. The dinner ended at 8 in the evening. By 9, they were still there, lingering over coffee and pie. I was exhausted. I remember looking at the clock on the microwave. It was 14 minutes past 9 when I finally ushered them out the door. Love you. Sarah, my mother said, kissing my cheek. You look tired. Take a vitamin. I watched their taillights fade down the street, locked the front door, and leaned my forehead against the cool wood. Evan came up behind me and rubbed my shoulders. They are a lot, he said softly. I leaned back into him. I just want a quiet week. Evan, just one quiet week. He kissed the top of my head. You will get it. Go to bed. I will clean up the kitchen. I was so grateful for that small mercy that I did not notice the tension in his hands. The next morning, Monday, broke clear and cold. I woke up at 6, my internal alarm clock overriding the fatigue. I showered, dressed in my usual uniform of dark slacks and a soft gray sweater, and went down to my office with a mug of black tea. This was my favorite time of day. The house was silent. The chaos of the dinner was erased, thanks to Evan, and the world felt manageable. I sat at my desk and woke my laptop. I typed in my password. The screen flashed to life. At first, everything seemed normal. My desktop background was the standard Blue Harbor blue. My icons were in their rigid grid. But as I moved the cursor, I felt a tiny hesitation in the system, a micro stutter. I frowned. My machine was a high-performance model. Issued 3 months ago, it did not stutter. I opened my email client, and that was when I saw the first anomaly. In the bottom right corner of the screen, a small notification bubble was fading out. It read, Cloud Sync completed. My heart gave a strange, singular thump against my ribs. I did not use the personal cloud sync on this machine. It was strictly forbidden by company policy. I had disabled that feature the day I received the laptop. I clicked on the notification history. Sync completed. 14 items uploaded. I stared at the words. My tea forgotten. My fingers hovered over the trackpad. I told myself it was an automatic update. Windows sometimes reset preferences after a patch. It happened. It was annoying. But it was not a disaster. I opened the File Explorer to check the logs. I wanted to see what had been synced. Probably just temporary internet files or system caches. I navigated to the recent files list. The list populated, and the breath left my lungs in a silent rush. At the top of the list was a zipped folder named BH_compliance, _templates, _pack ... zip ... I did not create that folder ... I looked at the date, modified column ... Yesterday, 9:14 p.m., 14 minutes past 9 in the evening. I closed my eyes, trying to reconstruct the timeline. At 14 minutes past 9, I was standing at the front door, watching my mother and aunt walk to their cars. Evan was in the kitchen. Tyler had said he forgot his jacket. The memory hit me with the force of a physical blow. I was at the door. Tyler had run back inside. I assumed he had gone to the living room couch. He was gone for maybe 60 seconds. 60 seconds was not enough time to guess a password and copy files. It was impossible. Unless the machine was already unlocked, but I never left it unlocked. My stomach turned over. I opened the browser history. 9:13 p.m. Search, USB, transfer speed optimization. 9:13 p.m. Search Blue Harbor Employee Directory. The room suddenly felt very small and very cold. This was not an accidental click. This was not a system update. Someone had sat in my chair while I was saying goodbye to my mother 20 feet away, and they had extracted data. I clicked on the zipped folder to see the contents. My hand was shaking so badly I missed the icon twice. When it opened, I felt a wave of nausea. They were not just templates. The folder contained 12 PDF files and 2 Excel spreadsheets. I recognized the naming conventions immediately. Project_Garnet_Audit_V4. PDF. Manifest_. Log_. Shipping_Q. 3. LSX. These were not public documents. These were internal working papers related to a client in the logistics sector. They contained routing numbers, compliance codes, and the names of external auditors who were supposed to remain anonymous. They were boring to the average person, useless to a thief looking for credit card numbers, but they were legally radioactive. I pushed my chair back, the wheels rolling harsh against the hardwood floor. I have to report this, I whispered to the empty room. The thought made my throat close up. If I reported this, I would trigger an incident review. I would have to hand over the laptop. They would see the timestamp. They would ask who had access. I would have to say, my unemployed brother was in my house, and I left my workstation unsecured. I would be fired. That was the best-case scenario. The worst case involved lawyers and a breach of contract suit that would bankrupt us. I stood up and paced the small room. Maybe I could delete it. Maybe I could wipe the log. No. Blue Harbor's IT department had shadow logs. If I deleted the record, it would look like a cover-up. It would look like guilt. I needed to talk to Evan. He would know what to do. He was the calm one. He understood computers. I ran upstairs. Evan was just waking up, sitting on the edge of the bed, rubbing his face. "Evan," I said, my voice tight and high. He looked up, blinking. "Sarah? What is wrong? You look pale. I need you to listen to me." I said, "Someone accessed my work laptop last night, during dinner." Evan froze. His hand stopped midway through running through his hair. "What do you mean?" "I mean someone logged in at 14 minutes past 9, while I was saying goodbye to Mom. They downloaded files. Evan, they synced them to a cloud account." Evan stood up slowly. He looked confused, but there was something else in his eyes, a flicker of something that looked like annoyance. "Sarah, you are spiraling," he said. "It was probably just an update. You know how those machines are." "It was not an update," I snapped, the volume of my voice startling us both. "I saw the search history. Someone searched for employee directories. Someone made a zip file of my active projects." He walked over to me and put his hands on my shoulders. Okay, calm down. Who would do that? Your mom? Dana? That does not make sense." "Tyler," I said. The name tasted like ash. Tyler ran back inside to get his jacket. He was the only one near the office. Evan's grip on my shoulders tightened slightly. "Tyler?" "Sarah. He can barely operate his own iPhone. Why would he want your insurance files? He probably just wanted to check his email or something and panicked. He downloaded a zip file." "Evan," he named it. Evan sighed. A long, exasperated sound that made me feel like a child throwing a tantrum. Look, even if he did, he probably thought it was like resume templates or clip art. You know he is desperate for a job. He probably thought you had resources he could use. He breached a federal compliance protocols. I said, pulling away from him. "It does not matter what he thought. It matters what he took." Evan ran a hand over his face. "Okay, so, delete it." I stared at him. "What?" "Delete the file. Delete the history. Call Tyler and tell him to delete whatever he put on his cloud. Do not make this a thing. Sarah, if you call your boss, you are going to get him in trouble. You are going to get yourself fired over a misunderstanding. His reaction was wrong. It was off-key. Evan was usually the rule follower. He was the one who made me return a library book if it was one day overdue. Now he was telling me to destroy evidence? I cannot just delete it. I said slowly, "That is not how it works. There are logs I cannot see." "Sarah, please," he said, and his voice took on a wheedling tone. "Just think about the family. Your mom is already on edge. If you accuse Tyler of corporate espionage, it will break her. Just handle it quietly." I looked at my husband, and for the first time in 7 years, I felt a total lack of recognition. He was not worried about my job. He was worried about the noise. He wanted the problem to vanish because it was inconvenient. "I'm going downstairs." I said, "Sarah." I walked out of the bedroom. I needed clear air. I went back to my office and sat before the laptop. The screen had gone dark. I tapped the spacebar, and the login prompt appeared. My reflection stared back at me from the glossy black screen. I looked terrified. I had signed a document on my first day at Blue Harbor. I acknowledged that I am the sole custodian of the devices issued to me. I understand that failure to report unauthorized access immediately is grounds for termination and potential legal action. Immediately. I looked at the clock. It was now 8 in the morning. The breach had happened 11 hours ago. I picked up my phone. My hands were cold and stiff. I scrolled through my contacts until I found Marla Kent, Blue Harbor team lead. My thumb hovered over the call button. If I pressed this, I was blowing up my life. I was inviting strangers into my home. I was betraying my brother. But if I did not press it, and they found out later, I was a co-conspirator. I pressed the button and put the phone to my ear. It rang once, twice. "Kent," Marla answered. Her voice was crisp, efficient, devoid of warmth. "Marla, it's Sarah Simmons," I said. My voice shook, so I cleared my throat and tried again. "It is Sarah. I have a situation with my laptop." There was a pause. "What kind of situation?" I think there was unauthorized access last night. I found a download log I did not create." The silence on the other end of the line was absolute. It lasted so long I thought the call had dropped. "Marla, what is the timestamp of the access?" she asked. Her voice had changed. The crispness was gone, replaced by a flat, deadly serious tone. 14 minutes past 9 in the evening yesterday." I said, "And the file name?" I read it to her. "BH _compliance _templates _pack ... zip ... I heard the sound of typing on her end. ... fast ... aggressive typing ... Sarah ... listen to me very carefully ... Marla said, "Do not touch the keyboard. Do not try to turn the machine off. Do not try to close any windows." Okay, I stammered. I thought she was going to yell. I thought she was going to ask why I was so stupid. "Is the laptop connected to your home Wi-Fi?" she asked. "Yes. Unplug your router," she commanded. "Right now, go to the wall and pull the plug." "But my husband is working upstairs." "Pull the plug." "Sarah, now." I scrambled under the desk, fumbling for the power strip. I yanked the cord for the router. The lights on the modem blinked out. The silence in the house seemed to deepen. "It is done," I said, breathless. "Good," Marla said. "You are going to sit there, and you are going to wait. Do not let anyone else in that room. Do not let your husband in that room. Someone from Stonegate Digital will be contacting you within the hour." "Stonegate?" I asked. They were the intense security contractors we only heard about in rumors, the ones who handled existential threats. "Marla, is this about the audit?" Marla did not answer the question. "You did the right thing calling." "Sarah," she said, but it sounded like a eulogy. "Stay off your phone unless it is us." The line went dead. I sat there, holding the silent phone, staring at the black screen of the laptop. My heart was hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. "Do not let your husband in that room." Why would she say that? My phone buzzed in my hand, making me jump. It was a text message. I looked at the screen, expecting Marla again, or maybe this Stonegate entity. It was my mother. "Your brother says he only printed something real quick last night. Don't be dramatic about it. Sarah, He is just trying to get his life together. I stared at the words. Don't be dramatic. It was the family motto. The shield they used to deflect every boundary I tried to set. If I complained about them borrowing money and not returning it, I was being dramatic. If I asked them to call before showing up, I was being dramatic. But this was not a stain on the carpet or a borrowed $20. I looked at the dark laptop. I looked at the unplugged router. I thought about Marla's voice, tight with something that sounded like fear. My mother thought this was a squabble. She thought I was being mean to my little brother. I felt a hot flush of anger rise up my neck. But beneath it, chilling the sweat on my skin, was a cold, heavy dread. They had no idea what they had done, and I had a terrible feeling that by the time they understood, it would be too late for all of us. I stood up, smoothing the wrinkles in my slacks with trembling hands, and walked to the kitchen. I grabbed my car keys. I was going to drive to my mother's house, where Tyler was currently crashing. But as I reached the front door, the bell rang. It was a sharp, insistent sound. I pulled the door open. Tyler stood on the porch. He looked disheveled, wearing the same hoodie he had worn to dinner the night before, his hands shoved deep into the pockets. Behind him, parked at the curb, was Aunt Dana's bright red sedan. She was already getting out, clutching her purse like a shield. "Mom said you were freaking out." Tyler said. He did not look at me. He looked at the siding of the house, at the hydrangeas, anywhere but my face. I stepped back to let them in. Freaking out is not the word I would use. "Tyler, come inside." Dana breezed past him, smelling of floral perfume and aggressive cheerfulness. "Sarah, honey, really, your mother called me in a panic. She thinks you are about to call the police on your own brother." I closed the door and locked it. The mechanical thud of the deadbolt felt final. "I am not calling the police," I said, keeping my voice low. "But I need the truth. Right now." We moved into the living room. Tyler sat on the edge of the sofa, bouncing his leg, a nervous tic he had carried since childhood. Dana stood by the fireplace, arranging knickknacks that did not need arranging, her back stiff. "Tyler," I said, standing in the center of the room, "you told Mom you printed a resume." "Yeah," he said. He looked up, his eyes defiant but watery. "My phone was dead. I needed to apply for that warehouse job Mom keeps sending me links for. I just wanted to use the desktop. I accessed the logs." "Tyler," I said, "I know you did not just print a resume. You downloaded a zip file. You searched for the employee directory. You synced my work data to a personal cloud account." Tyler stopped bouncing his leg. He bit his lip. "Okay, so I got curious," he said, his voice dropping. "Curious?" I repeated. "You are always acting like your job is so high stakes," he said, gaining a little momentum, "like you are some secret agent. I just wanted to see what was so important. I saw a folder that said templates, and I thought, maybe I can use these, to make my stuff look professional." "You thought compliance audit manifests were resume templates?" I asked. "I did not read the names," he shouted, throwing his hands up. "I just grabbed the folder. It was a mistake. I am sorry." "Jesus, Sarah, why do you have to be like this?" Dana turned around, her face pinched with disapproval. "Sarah, listen to him. He is apologizing. He made a mistake. He is under a lot of pressure with the job hunt. If they are just basic files, why is it such a big deal?" I looked at my aunt. She had known me my entire life. She had changed my diapers. Yet, in this moment, she looked at me with total incomprehension. To her, a computer file was a computer file. It was a digital piece of paper. If it was not money, and it was not a nude photo, she could not understand the harm. "It is not basic files." "Dana," I said, fighting to keep the tremor out of my voice, "it is proprietary data. I signed legal agreements." "Oh, legal agreements," Dana scoffed, waving her hand. "Everyone signs those. I signed one at the bakery. It means you cannot give away the cookie recipe. It does not mean you treat your family like criminals. They are not hearing me." I realized, the thought washed over me with a cold clarity. They were interpreting this through the lens of family drama. To them, this was Sarah being the uptight big sister again. This was Sarah thinking she was better than everyone else. They were defending their egos, not realizing they were standing in the middle of a minefield. I cannot explain this to you. I said. I looked at Tyler. Did you send those files to anyone? No, he said. I just have them on my cloud. I have not even looked at them yet. Delete them. I said. Right now. Give me your phone. Tyler hesitated, his hand guarding his pocket. You are acting crazy. Give me the phone. Tyler! The shout tore out of my throat, startling all of us. The room went silent. Tyler's eyes went wide. He had never heard me yell like that, not once. Slowly, he pulled his phone from his pocket and held it out. I took it. My hands were shaking. I unlocked it. His passcode was still his birth year, simple and insecure, and navigated to his cloud drive app. I saw the file, bh_compliance_templates_pack, zip. I hit the delete button, then I went to the trash folder and emptied it. I handed the phone back to him. If anyone asks, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper, you never saw those files. You never touched that computer. Do you understand? Tyler nodded, looking genuinely spooked now. Okay, Sarah, I promise. Just then, my own phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a jarring sound in the quiet room. I pulled it out. The screen read, unknown caller. I knew who it was. I have to take this, I said. I walked out of the living room, leaving Tyler and Dana staring after me, and went into the kitchen. I closed the door, though it offered little soundproofing. Hello? I answered. Sarah Simmons? A male voice asked. It was deep, distorted slightly by a bad connection, or maybe deliberate masking. Yes, this is Arthur Vance from Stonegate Digital. I am on a secure line with Marla Kent. My stomach dropped. I sat down on one of the kitchen stools because my legs suddenly refused to hold me. I am here, I said. Sarah. Marla's voice cut in. She sounded breathless, like she had been running. We have a problem, a significant problem. I deleted the files from the external source. I said quickly, the words tumbling out. My brother. He had them on his phone. I deleted them. It is gone. There was a pause. Then Vance spoke. His voice was devoid of emotion, like a machine reading a script. Mrs. Simmons, deletion is irrelevant at this stage. We flagged the exfiltration event at 9:14 in the evening yesterday. But that was not the only event. What do you mean? I asked. The files your account accessed were not standard templates. Vance continued. They were part of the Garnet package. That data is tied to a blind oversight request from the National Security Compliance Bureau. National Security? I repeated. The words felt too big for my kitchen. I was looking at a magnet on my fridge that said live, laugh, love. It seemed absurd. Those files contained a canary marker. Vance said. I frowned. I did not know the term. A what? A canary marker, Marla explained, her voice tight. It is a piece of passive code embedded in the document metadata. It is silent when the file is opened on an authorized machine. But if the file is moved to an unauthorized network and opened, the marker pings our server with the geolocation and IP address of the viewer. I gripped the phone tighter. Okay, so it pinged when my brother opened it? No, Vance said. That is the issue. The marker did not ping from your home. It pinged 20 minutes ago. I looked at the clock. 20 minutes ago. Tyler was driving over here. It pinged from an external location. Vance said, a dedicated server bank in an industrial district on the east side of the city. I felt the blood drain from my face. That is not possible. My brother said he did not send it to anyone. The data says otherwise. Vance said, the file was moved. It was copied, and now it is open on a machine we cannot identify. Sarah? Marla said. And for the first time, I heard genuine panic in her voice. This is not just a breach of contract anymore. The NSCB monitors that marker. When it pings from an unlisted server, they treat it as a hostile interception of federal data. They are going to assume you sold it. I stood up. Knocking the stool over, it hit the floor with a loud clatter. I did not sell anything, I shouted. Listen to me, Vance said. His voice remained calm, which was somehow more terrifying. "We are initiating a containment protocol. Do not use your laptop. Do not use your home internet. Do not speak to anyone about the nature of your work. We are deploying a team to secure the hardware." "A team?" I asked. "Like IT support?" "Recovery specialists," Vance said. "Stay at your residence." The line went dead. I stood in the kitchen, listening to the silence of the disconnected phone. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. Recovery specialists, national security. I looked through the glass pane of the kitchen door. In the living room, Dana was patting Tyler's shoulder. They looked like a normal family having a normal crisis. They thought the problem was over because I had deleted a file. They did not know that the file was already gone. It had traveled. It was alive. I needed Evan. I ran up the stairs. Taking them two at a time, I burst into the bedroom. Evan was sitting on the edge of the bed, his laptop open on his knees. He looked up, startled, and snapped the lid shut. "Jesus, Sarah," he said. "You scared me." "Evan," I said, gasping for air. "It is worse. It is so much worse." He stood up and put the laptop on the dresser. "What happened? Did you talk to your boss?" "I talked to security." I said, "They said the files. They said they have a tracker in them, a canary marker." Evan's face went very still. "A canary marker?" "Yes. They said it pinged. Someone else has the files." "Evan, it pinged from a server on the east side. Tyler must have sent it to someone. He is lying to me." Evan let out a short, sharp breath. He ran a hand through his hair. "Sarah, stop. Just stop for a second. They are sending a team." "Evan," I said, grabbing his arm. "A recovery team. They think I sold the data." Evan pulled his arm away. He walked to the window and looked out at the street. "You are spiraling." "Sarah," he said. His voice was flat. I stared at his back. "I am telling you what they told me. They are trying to scare you," he said, turning around. "That is what these corporate security guys do. They use big words like federal and marker to cover their own assets. It is probably a glitch, a false positive." "A glitch?" I asked. "The marker pinged a specific location." "How is that a glitch?" "Computers make mistakes. Sarah, you know that." He was not looking at me. He was looking at a point just past my left ear. "Evan," I said slowly, "why are you acting like this?" "Like what?" he asked, finally meeting my eyes. His gaze was hard, defensive. "I am trying to be the rational one here. You are hysterical. You are talking about federal agents because your brother downloaded a resume template. It is ridiculous. It is not a resume template," I screamed. "Lower your voice," he hissed. "Your family is downstairs. I do not care." I said, "Why are you not worried? If they come here, they are going to take everything. Your computers, too." Evan flinched, a tiny, almost imperceptible twitch of his eye. "Let the company handle it." "Sarah," he said, "just sit down, drink some water, and let them handle it. You are making it worse by panicking." It sounded rehearsed. It sounded like a line he had practiced in a mirror. "Let the company handle it." I took a step back from him. A cold seed of suspicion planted itself in my gut. "I am going to check the router logs." I said. Evan froze. "The router is unplugged. I can access the local history from the admin panel if I plug it into a localized power source without the WAN cable." I said, "I know how to do it." "Don't," he said. "Why not?" "Because it is a waste of time," he said. His voice rose, cracking slightly. "Sarah, just stop digging." I looked at my husband. I had been married to him for 7 years. I knew how he liked his coffee, black, 2 sugars. I knew he snored when he was stressed. I knew he hated horror movies. But looking at him now, with a sheen of sweat on his upper lip and his hands clenched into fists at his sides, I felt like I was looking at a stranger wearing my husband's clothes. I turned and walked out of the room. "Sarah!" he called after me. I ignored him. I went back downstairs, past the living room where Dana and Tyler were watching a game show with the volume low, and into my office. I closed the door and locked it. I pulled the router from under the desk. I found a spare battery pack in my drawer. a hefty brick I used for camping, and used a DC adapter to power the router locally. I did not plug the internet cable back into the wall. It was an air-gapped loop. I opened my laptop. I knew I wasn't supposed to touch it, but I needed to know. I connected to the router's local admin page. I navigated to the device history logs. My eyes scanned the lines of text. Most of it was standard. Sarah's iPhone, Evan's desktop, smart TV. Then I saw it. Unknown device, MAC address, ending in 4F2A. It had connected yesterday at 9:14 in the evening, but that was not the only time. I scrolled back. Sunday, 2 a.m., Saturday, 3:15 a.m., Friday, 1:45 a.m. The device had been connecting to my network for weeks, always late at night, always for short bursts. I checked the bandwidth usage for those sessions. They were massive, gigabytes of data moving out. My hand flew to my mouth. This wasn't just about the dinner. Someone had been siphoning data from my house for a month. I checked the device name again. It wasn't just unknown. I expanded the detail view. Host name, WRN_L, GC_NODE_04. I stared at the letters. WRN, Ren. I slammed the laptop shut. I unlocked the office door and marched into the living room. Tyler looked up, smiling tentatively. Sarah, Dana says she is going to order pizza. We thought maybe we could... Who is Caleb? I asked. The smile vanished from Tyler's face. The color drained out of him so fast it looked like a magic trick. What? He whispered. You told me you were looking for a resume, I said, walking toward him. But you didn't just find a resume. You met someone. Who is Caleb? Tyler looked at Dana, then back at me. I don't know what you mean. Do not lie to me, I said. My voice was low and dangerous. I just saw the logs. Tyler, a device has been connecting to my network. A device with a name that looks a lot like Ren. Who is he? Tyler slumped back against the sofa cushions. He looked small. He looked 12 years old again. Caught with a broken vase. I met him at the gym. Tyler whispered, Northline Fitness. The gym. I repeated. He is a tech guy, Tyler said, the words spilling out in a rush now that the dam had broken. He saw me struggling with the online applications on my phone in the lobby. He offered to help. He said he does. I don't know. Consulting. He said he could help me clean up my resume. And? I pushed. And we started talking. He asked about the family. He asked about you. About me? He asked what you did, Tyler said. I told him you worked in risk management. He seemed impressed. He said if I could show him the kind of templates you use, he could get me a job at a security-adjacent firm. He said he had connections. My head was spinning. A stranger at a gym. A random helpful stranger who just happened to want templates from a risk management officer. Tyler, I said, feeling sick, did you give him the Wi-Fi password? Tyler looked down at his hands. I might have sent him a picture of the card. The one in your drawer. When? A few weeks ago. He admitted, when I was cat-sitting for you. The pieces clicked into place with a terrifying precision. The late-night connections. The data transfer. Tyler hadn't just breached my security last night. He had opened the back door weeks ago. Last night was just the moment he got clumsy enough to be caught. And this man, Caleb Wren. I said, I tested the name on my tongue. It felt familiar. Not in a personal way. I did not know a Caleb. But Wren. Suddenly, a memory flashed in my mind. A morning briefing at Blue Harbor. 3 months ago. A slide on the projector screen listing entities flagged for Do Not Transact status. It was a list of shell companies and contractors suspected of industrial espionage. There had been a name, Wren Logistics, or maybe Caleb Wren. It was a fleeting mention, a footnote in a presentation about supply chain vulnerabilities. My stomach turned to ice. This man was not a random gym buddy. He was a professional. And he had targeted my brother to get to me. Tyler, I said, I need his number, now. Tyler fumbled for his phone again. He scrolled through his contacts and held it up. Caleb, Jim, I pulled out my own phone and dialed the number. I put it to my ear. I expected a ring. I expected a voice. "We're sorry. The number you have dialed is not in service. Please check the number and try again." I lowered the phone. "He is gone," I said. "What?" Tyler asked. "The number is disconnected." I said, "He is gone." Dana stood up. "Well, maybe he just changed his plan. People change phones." "Sarah, he did not change his plan." "Dana," I snapped. "He is not real. He does not exist." I looked at Tyler. He was shaking. "You helped him," I said. "You helped a corporate spy steal federal data from my house." "I didn't know," Tyler cried. "He said he wanted to help me." I turned away from them. I looked toward the stairs. Evan was up there. Evan, who had told me to stop digging. Evan, who had dismissed the neighbor's glitch. Evan, who had claimed the late-night connections were nothing. He knew. The thought was so quiet, so devastating, that it almost didn't register. Evan knew about the connections. He was the one who managed our home network. If I could see the logs, he could see them. He checked them every week. If there were connections at 2 a.m, Evan knew. And he had lied to me. I felt the walls of my safe, steady life collapsing inward. The raid Marla had warned me about was coming, but the invasion had already happened. It had walked in through the front door, wearing the face of my brother, and it had been sleeping in my bed, wearing the face of my husband. "I have to go," I said. "Where?" Dana asked. "You cannot leave. Your boss said to stay here." I grabbed my purse. "I'm going to the gym." I said, "I need to see if this ghost has a face." "Sarah, no," Tyler yelled. I ignored him. I ignored Dana's protests. I walked out the front door, past the perfectly manicured lawn, and got into my car. As I backed out of the driveway, I looked up at the second-floor window. The curtain moved. Evan was watching me leave. I put the car in drive and floored it, the tires screeching against the asphalt, a sound that finally matched the scream building inside my chest. The drive to Northline Fitness was a blur of gray pavement and aggressive lane changes. I was not a fast driver by nature. I was the person who set the cruise control at exactly the speed limit. But today I cut through the midday traffic with a recklessness that made my hands sweat against the leather of the steering wheel. My mind was a loop of static, interrupted only by the replay of Tyler's voice saying the name Caleb Wren and the image of Evan watching me from the bedroom window. Northline Fitness was located in a strip mall that had seen better days, wedged between a discount mattress store and a vape shop. I parked the car and sat for a moment, waiting for my heart rate to drop below a sprint. I needed to look composed. I needed to look like Sarah Simmons, the woman who organized charity drives and filed her taxes early. Not Sarah Simmons, the woman whose brother had just committed federal treason in her home office. I walked inside. The air smelled of rubber mats, stale sweat, and citrus disinfectant. A wall of thumping bass vibrated the floorboards. At the front desk, a young woman with bright purple braids was scrolling on her phone, chewing gum with a rhythmic, slack-jawed motion. "Can I help you?" she asked without looking up. "I need to speak to a member," I said. My voice sounded thin in the cavernous room. "His name is Caleb Wren." She finally looked up, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Is he expecting you?" "It is an emergency." I said, "I just need to know if he is here." She sighed, a long, performative exhale, and tapped a few keys on her computer. "Wren?" "Yes, W-R-E-N." She typed, frowned, and typed again. "We do not have a member named Caleb Wren." My stomach gave a hard twist. "Are you sure?" "He said he comes here all the time. He has been working out here for months. I am looking at the database." "Ma'am," she said, turning the screen slightly away from me. "No Caleb Wren. No C. Wren. No Wren at all. Maybe he goes to the location on 4th Street? He said Northline." I insisted. I pulled my phone out. My fingers felt thick and clumsy as I navigated to Tyler's Instagram. I had seen a photo there weeks ago, something Tyler had posted with a caption about grinding or hustling. I scrolled past pictures of his cat and his half-eaten sandwiches until I found it. It was a selfie of Tyler in the mirror of a locker room. In the background, slightly out of focus, a man was tying his shoe on a bench. He was broad-shouldered, wearing a nondescript black t-shirt and a dark baseball cap. "Here," I said, thrusting the phone over the counter. "This guy? Do you know him?" The girl leaned in, squinting. "Oh, yeah, that is Chris." "Chris?" I asked. "Yeah, Chris," she said, leaning back. "I do not know his last name. He is not a member. He comes in on a guest pass." "A guest pass? Who brings him?" "Different people." She shrugged. "He is super friendly. He spots people on the bench press, buys smoothies. Usually he comes in with one of the regulars. I think he says he is from out of town and just wants to lift. We charge him $15 for a day pass and he pays cash." "Cash," I repeated. "Yeah, why? Did he steal your wallet or something?" I stared at the girl. Her name tag said Kayla. She had no idea that she was describing a ghost. A man who paid cash, used a fake name, and leveraged social engineering to gain access to a building without leaving a digital paper trail. He was not a gym rat. He was a predator who used the weight room as a hunting ground for useful idiots like my brother. "No," I said softly. "He did not steal my wallet." I walked back out to the car. The sky had turned a bruised purple, threatening rain. I sat in the driver's seat and locked the doors. My phone rang. It was Marla. I stared at the screen for 3 seconds before answering. "Sarah," Marla said. Her voice was no longer the voice of my team lead. It was the voice of a stranger reading a legal script. "I am here," I said. "You need to listen to me very carefully." She said, "I have just finished a debriefing with the Internal Oversight Committee. We have formally notified the NSCB." The acronym hit me like a physical slap. NSCB, the National Security Compliance Bureau. They were the ones who audited the auditors. They were the ones who showed up in windbreakers with warrants. "Okay," I said. The word was hollow. "Do not speak. Sarah, just listen. You are now a subject of interest in an active investigation regarding the exfiltration of Class 4 controlled data. You are instructed to document every interaction you have had with your devices in the last 48 hours. Do not delete anything. Do not format anything. Do not try to be helpful by organizing files." "Marla," I said, my voice cracking. "It was my brother. He met a guy." "Stop," she commanded. "Do not tell me. If you tell me, I become a witness against you. Save it for the agents." "Agents," I whispered. "They will be contacting you." She said, "Until then, you are on administrative leave, effective immediately. Your access to the Blue Harbor building is revoked. Your credentials have been suspended. Do not come to the office. Do not contact any clients. Marla, please, I have worked for you for 5 years, and that is why I am giving you this one phone call instead of letting the marshals surprise you at your door." She said. Her voice softened. "Just a fraction. Sarah, lock your house. Document everything. And for the love of God, do not lie to them when they come." The line went dead. I sat there, gripping the phone, listening to the hum of the traffic on the main road. Administrative leave. Subject of interest. These were terms I used in my reports about other people. Negligent warehouse managers, corrupt shipping clerks. They were not terms that applied to Sarah Simmons. My mind felt like it was buffering, unable to load the reality of the situation. I looked at the dashboard clock. It was 1 in the afternoon, 4 hours ago. My biggest problem was a headache from stress. Now, my career was effectively over, and I was waiting for federal agents. My phone buzzed again. I flinched, expecting an unknown number, expecting the NSCB. It was my mother. "I just talked to Dana. You need to calm down. Tyler is a mess. He is crying in the bathroom. Do not ruin his life over some files. Sarah, he is your brother. I read the text twice. Do not ruin his life." I let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. The audacity of it was breathtaking. Tyler had handed the keys to my life to a stranger, destroyed my career, and exposed me to federal prosecution. And my mother was worried about his feelings. It was the old pattern, the ancient architecture of our family. Tyler was the fragile one, the one who needed protection, the one whose failures were always framed as bad luck or someone else's fault. I was the strong one, the one who could take the hit. If Tyler broke a window, I was scolded for not watching him. If Tyler spent his rent money, I was expected to cover it because I had a savings account. But this was not rent money. I typed a reply. He stole from the government. Mom, this is not about me being mean. This is about prison. I hovered over the send button, then I backspaced. She wouldn't understand. She would read the word prison and accuse me of being dramatic. She would say I was trying to scare her. She would make herself the victim. I deleted the text and threw the phone onto the passenger seat. I drove home. I did not know where else to go. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked deceptively peaceful. The lawn was green. The windows were clean. It looked like the kind of house where people lived safe, boring lives. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The silence was absolute. Evan's car was in the driveway, but he was not in the living room. I went upstairs. The bedroom door was closed. I pushed it open. Evan was on the balcony, talking on his phone. The glass door was slid shut, so I could not hear him, but I could see his posture. He was hunched over, his hand chopping the air in short, aggressive motions. He looked angry. He turned, saw me through the glass, and his face transformed instantly. The anger vanished, replaced by a smooth, concerned mask. He hung up the phone and slid the door open. "Hey," he said, "you were gone a while. Is everything okay?" "Who were you talking to?" I asked. "Just work," he said. "Some guy in billing is trying to screw up my invoice for the consulting gig. You know how it is." I looked at him. I really looked at him. He was wearing his favorite blue button-down shirt, the one I had bought him for his birthday. He looked handsome. He looked reliable. But he was lying. I could feel it radiating off him like heat. I went to the gym. I said, "Oh?" He said. He walked over to the dresser and picked up his watch, strapping it on with casual precision. "Did you find your mystery man?" "He is not a member." I said, "He uses a fake name. Chris, he pays cash for day passes." Evan nodded, his expression sympathetic but detached. "See? I told you. He is just some grifter, probably trying to steal identities for credit cards or something. It is a scam." "Sarah, but it is not international espionage." "Marla called me." I said. Evan stopped adjusting his watch. "Yeah? What did she say?" "She said the NSCB has been notified. She said I am a subject of interest." Evan laughed. It was a short, sharp bark of a laugh. That is standard corporate covering their ass maneuver. "Sarah, they have to say that. They are scaring you so you don't sue them for wrongful termination if they fire you." He walked over and put his hands on my arms. "Sarah, listen to me. Nobody is coming. You need to stop digging. If you keep stirring this up, you are going to make it real. Just let it die." "Let it die?" I pulled away from him. My files are on a server on the east side of the city. "Evan." "So what?" he said. "So some hacker has a bunch of boring PDFs. They will realize they can't sell them and they will delete them." He was minimizing it, just like my mother. But unlike my mother, Evan understood technology. He knew what a canary marker was. He knew what compliance data meant. His ignorance was not natural. It was constructed. "I need to lie down." I said, "I have a migraine." "Okay," he said. He looked relieved. "Yeah, take a nap. I have to run out for a bit anyway. I have a client meeting." "A client meeting?" I asked. "At 4 in the afternoon?" "Yeah," he said, already moving toward the door. "Just a quick tech support thing. I will be back for dinner. We can order pizza." He kissed my forehead. His lips felt dry and cool, and walked out. I waited until I heard the front door close and the sound of his car engine fading down the street. Then I moved. I went to my office. I knew I wasn't supposed to touch the laptop, but I needed answers that were not in my head. I did not turn on my work computer. Instead, I grabbed my personal iPad. I sat on the floor, my back against the locked door, and started searching. I searched for Caleb Wren, Nothing but a few old obituaries and a high school football player in Texas. Then I searched for Chris combined with Northline Fitness. Nothing. I went back to Tyler's social media. I found the photo again. I zoomed in on the man in the background. The resolution was grainy, but I could see his face. I took a screenshot and cropped it. I ran it through a reverse image search engine. 3 hits. One was a stock photo of Cannon baseball cap. The second was a dead link to a deleted Twitter account. The third was a LinkedIn profile for a man named Christopher Halloway. I clicked the link. Christopher Halloway, logistics consultant, Greater Larkhaven area. The profile photo was professional, high resolution. It was the same man, minus the hat, wearing a suit. He looked generic, handsome in a way that left no impression. I scrolled through his work history. Senior analyst at Vector Supply, consultant at Ren Solutions. There it was. Ren. I clicked on Ren Solutions. The company page had 5 followers. No logo, no website link, just a description. Optimizing data flow for secure transport. I looked at the connections. Christopher Halloway had 500 connections. I started clicking through them. They were all fake. I could tell. I worked in risk management. I spent half my life verifying identities. These profiles were too polished. The photos were all headshots with similar lighting. The work histories were vague strings of buzzwords. Synergy, optimization, global outreach. It was a farm, a network of synthetic identities created to give legitimacy to a ghost. I looked at the recent activity on Christopher Halloway's profile. 2 days ago. He had liked a post. I clicked on the post. It was an article from a trade journal titled, Vulnerabilities in Domestic Cargo Oversight. I felt a cold chill. This was not a scammer looking for credit card numbers. This was a targeted operation. They had built a person, placed him in a gym where my brother worked out, and waited. But how did they know to target Tyler? Tyler was nobody. He was unemployed. He had no connection to Blue Harbor except me. And how did they know I was related to Tyler? My maiden name was different. I didn't post about my family on LinkedIn. Someone had to have told them. I closed the iPad. The silence of the house felt heavy, suffocating. I couldn't stay here. I couldn't sit in this box and wait for the agents or for Evan to come home with his lies. I needed Leah. Leah Porter had been my best friend since college. She was a lawyer, a ruthless divorce attorney who saw the world as a series of contracts and breaches. She lived 10 minutes away in a condo that smelled of expensive candles and justice. I drove to her place without calling. She opened the door wearing sweatpants and a silk blouse, a glass of red wine in her hand. "Sarah," she said, her eyes widening. "You look like you are about to throw up." I said. She pulled me inside and sat me down on her beige sofa. She poured me a glass of wine without asking. "Talk," she said. I told her everything. I told her about the dinner, the files, the gym, the fake profile, and the NSCB. I told her about Evan's dismissal and my mother's guilt trip. When I finished, Leah sat in silence for a long time. She swirled her wine, watching the red liquid coat the glass. "Okay," she said finally. Her voice was calm, analytical. "Let us strip away the emotion. Let us look at the facts." "Facts," I said. "The fact is my life is over." "No," she said sharply. "That is emotion. The fact is unauthorized access occurred. The fact is the files were moved. The fact is your husband is acting suspicious." She leaned forward. "Sarah, you are asking the wrong question. You are asking, how could this happen? And why is Tyler so stupid? What is the right question?" I asked. "The right question is, who benefits?" I stared at her. "Who benefits? Nobody benefits. This is a disaster. Someone benefits." Leah said, "Corporate espionage is not a hobby. It is a business. Someone wanted those files. Why? What is in them? Routing numbers." I said, "Compliance audits? It is boring stuff." "Leah, it proves that shipping containers are checking the right boxes. Does it prove they are checking the boxes? Or does it show how to avoid checking the boxes?" I blinked. I hadn't thought of that. The files contained the audit protocols. If you knew the protocols, the exact timing, the specific codes the software looked for, you could theoretically design a shipment that bypassed them. You could make a container invisible to the system. They could move anything. I whispered. Drugs, weapons, or people? Leah said grimly. I felt sick. And then there is Evan, Leah said. She put her glass down. Sarah, I have never liked Evan. You know that. I always thought he was too smooth, too eager to please. He is my husband, I said automatically. He is a man who manages your home network, she countered. He is a man who claims a federal investigation is no big deal. He is a man who is suddenly having client meetings at 4 p.m. on the day his wife is accused of treason. She looked me in the eye. Who benefits from you not reporting this? Evan does. Who benefits from you thinking it is just a glitch? Evan does. Why? I asked. Why would he do this to me? Maybe he is in debt, Leah said. Maybe he is in trouble. Maybe he is just greedy. But Sarah, you need to stop protecting him. You need to protect yourself. If the NSCB walks through your door, they are not going to care that you love him. They are going to look at the IP logs, and if those logs show that your husband facilitated this— She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. I stood up. I need to talk to Tyler again. I need to know exactly what Caleb said to him. Every word. I drove back to my mother's house. It was dark now. The streetlights were flickering on, casting long orange shadows across the lawns. My mother answered the door. She looked tired, her eyes red. He is in the basement, she said, stepping aside. Please, Sarah, be gentle. I walked down the stairs. Tyler was sitting on the old pull-out couch, staring at the TV. He looked small. Tyler, I said. He looked up. I saw the fear in his eyes, but also the exhaustion. He was done fighting. I went to the gym. I said, Caleb isn't real. I know. Tyler whispered. I tried to call him again. It's dead. Tyler, I sat down next to him. I need you to tell me the truth, the whole truth. You didn't just copy those files because you were curious. He looked at his hands. No. Why did you do it? He swallowed hard. Caleb, he told me he could get me a job. You told me that. I said, no. Tyler said, he said he could get me a job at a specific firm, Ren Logistics. He said they handle high-security transport. He said I needed to prove I could handle sensitive material. Prove it how? He told me to bring him a sample, Tyler said. He asked specifically for your work. He said, your sister works at Blue Harbor, right? If you can get me a sample of their compliance formatting, I can show my boss that you understand the industry standards. He targeted me. I said, it wasn't an accident. Tyler started to cry, silent, shaking tears. I felt so stupid. Sarah, I just wanted to show you I could get a job. I wanted to come to Sunday dinner and tell you I had a career. I wanted you to be proud of me. I looked at my brother. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to scream at him for being so gullible, so desperate for validation that he sold me out to a ghost. But I couldn't hate him. I saw the tragedy of it. He was a product of our family, just like me. I was trained to fix everything. He was trained to be helpless. Caleb Wren had seen that dynamic and used it like a crowbar. He played you. Ty, I said softly. I know. He sobbed. I am sorry. I am so sorry. Did you tell Evan? I asked. Tyler wiped his nose. What? Did you tell Evan about Caleb? Before yesterday? Tyler hesitated. He looked up at the ceiling, thinking. I think I mentioned him once. He said, a few weeks ago, when Evan was helping me fix my car, I told him I met a guy who might have a lead on a job. Did you tell him the guy's name? Yeah. I think so. I said, Caleb from the gym. And what did Evan say? Tyler frowned. He said, good for you. He said I should follow up on it. I felt a coldness spread through my chest that had nothing to do with the temperature of the basement. Evan knew. He knew Tyler was talking to a man named Caleb. And when I found the connection logs, Evan had lied and said it was a neighbor. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. It was an email notification. Security alert. Personal cloud account. Accessed. My heart stopped. I opened the email. Your account was accessed from a new device. Time: 7:42 p.m. Location: 400 Industrial Way. Unit 9. I stared at the address. 400 Industrial Way. I knew that address. It wasn't a stranger's address. It wasn't a hacker's den in Russia or China. It was on the east side of town. An industrial park. I remembered a conversation with Evan. 6 months ago. He had come home excited, talking about a side project, a consulting gig for a logistics startup. He said he rented a small office space to keep his servers cool, to keep the noise out of the house. It's just a little unit over on Industrial Way. He had said, cheap rent, quiet. I looked at the map attached to the email. The pin dropped right on the edge of the city. The files had been accessed now. 7 minutes ago, Evan was not at a client meeting. He was at the warehouse. He was with the files. The realization did not come as a shock. It came as a final, crushing weight. The puzzle was finished. There were no missing pieces. Evan was not protecting me. He was not protecting the family. He was the leak. I stood up. Sarah? Tyler asked, looking up at me with red, puffy eyes. What is it? I looked at my brother. I looked at the boy I had spent my life protecting. The boy I was willing to go to jail to save. I have to go. I said, where? To find my husband. I said, I walked out of the basement, past my mother who was nervously wringing her hands in the hallway, and out into the night. The air was cold. I got into my car and punched the address into the GPS. 400 Industrial Way. It was 20 minutes away. I started the engine. My hands were not shaking anymore. The panic had burned itself out, leaving behind something harder, something colder. I was done being the responsible one. I was done being the fixer. I was going to find Evan, and I was going to find out exactly how much my life was worth on the open market. The drive to the east side of Larkhaven was a journey through the stratification of the city. I left the manicured lawns of Maple Crossing, past the strip malls and the fast food chains of the Midtown Transit Corridor, and finally entered the industrial sprawl that bordered the river. The sun was beginning to dip, casting long, bruised shadows across the concrete, but there was still enough daylight to see the grime that coated the windows of the warehouses. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel, a fine, high-frequency vibration that traveled up my arms and settled in my teeth. I had to grip the leather so tight my knuckles turned white just to keep the car in the lane. The GPS on my dashboard was a calm, oblivious blue line, guiding me toward the coordinates that had appeared in my security alert. 400 Industrial Way. I knew the area. It was a grid of corrugated metal buildings, trucking depots, and fenced-off lots filled with shipping containers. It was the part of the city where things were stored, moved, and forgotten. It was not a place for a risk management officer. It was certainly not a place for my husband, Evan, who complained if the air conditioning in our house deviated by 2 degrees. I turned off the main road, and the pavement turned rough, pitted with potholes from heavy trucks. The buildings here were anonymous, marked only by fading numbers or the logos of defunct companies. I saw the unit number, 400. It was a long, low building divided into suites. Most of them looked empty, their windows dark. Then I saw the car. It was parked in front of Unit 9, a silver sedan, kept immaculately clean, with a small dent on the rear bumper from a parking lot incident 2 years ago. Evan's car. I stopped my vehicle 3 spots down, behind a dumpster, and killed the engine. The silence that filled the car was sudden and ringing. I sat there for a moment, just breathing. Part of me, the part that was still Sarah the wife, Sarah the optimist, hoped I was wrong. Maybe he was here for a legitimate reason. Maybe the email alert was a coincidence. Maybe he was just buying used server racks from a liquidator. But as I stepped out of the car, the air smelled of diesel and damp concrete, and I saw the sign on the door of Unit 9. It was a small, magnetic sign, the kind you could order online for $20. It was white with blue lettering, Ren Logistics Consulting. The name hit me like a bucket of ice water thrown directly into my face. Ren. It was not a coincidence. It was not a misunderstanding. The ghost from the gym, the man who had groomed my brother, the entity that the security agencies were hunting, it was all right here, and my husband's car was parked in the spot labeled reserved. I walked toward the door. My legs felt heavy, as if gravity had doubled in the last 10 seconds. I tried the handle. It was unlocked. I pushed the door open. A bell jingled, a cheerful, small-town shop sound that felt grotesque in this setting. I stepped inside, expecting. I do not know what I expected. A command center? Banks of glowing screens? A smoke-filled room with men in trench coats? What I found was terrifying because of its banality. The unit was a single large room with concrete floors and fluorescent lights that buzzed with a low, headache-inducing hum. There were 2 cheap folding tables set up in an L shape. On the tables were 3 computer monitors, a high-speed document scanner, and neat stacks of paper. There was a coffee maker in the corner on top of a filing cabinet. A wall calendar hung near the light switch, marked with innocuous notes in blue ink. Doctor appointment, pick up dry cleaning, submit Q, 3 invoice. It looked like a struggling insurance agency. It looked like a tax preparer's pop-up office. It looked normal, and standing at the main desk, with his back to me, was Evan. He was holding a stack of papers, shipping labels, I realized, and feeding them into the scanner. The rhythmic zip-whir. Zip-whir of the machine was the only sound in the room besides the lights. "Evan," I said. My voice was not loud, but in the hollow acoustics of the warehouse, it sounded like a gunshot. Evan jumped. He spun around, the papers slipping from his hand and fluttering to the floor in a chaotic white cascade. "Sarah?" he said. His eyes were wide, the pupils dilated. For a second, he looked at me with pure, unadulterated fear. Then, almost instantly, the mask slammed down. He forced a smile, though it twitched at the corners. "Sarah, hey, you scared me. What are you doing here? I thought you were resting." I looked at the papers on the floor. I looked at the screens, which were displaying rows of data that looked suspiciously like the manifests I worked with every day. I got an alert. I said, stepping further into the room, my cloud account was accessed. The location pinged here. Evan laughed. A breathless, jagged sound. "Oh, right. The alert. Yeah, I was going to tell you. I had to. I had to log in to verify some network protocols for my client. I used your credentials because I knew you wouldn't mind." "Your client," I repeated. I pointed to the magnetic sign on the door, visible through the glass. "Ren Logistics Consulting. That is your client?" "Yes," he said, moving to stand in front of the monitors, blocking my view. "It is just a small logistics firm. They needed help with their data architecture. I told you. Just a side gig to pay down the credit cards." "Ren," I said again. "It is a common name." "Sarah, Caleb Wren," I said. "The man who targeted Tyler. The man who does not exist." Evan's smile faltered. He rubbed the back of his neck, a gesture he always used when he was cornered. "Look, Sarah, you are conflating things. It is just a coincidence." I walked up to the desk. I was close enough to smell him now, his cologne, the stale coffee on his breath, and the sharp, metallic scent of nervous sweat. "Move," I said. "Sarah, come on. You do not need to see this. It is boring technical stuff. Move." "Evan." I shoved past him. He grabbed my arm, his grip tight, then released me as if he realized touching me was a mistake. I looked at the center monitor. It was not boring technical stuff. It was a dashboard, but it wasn't a standard IT dashboard. It was a mirroring program. On the screen was a perfect replica of the Blue Harbor internal file structure, and in the center of the screen, a progress bar was filling up. Uploading to external node 04, 85% complete. He was not just looking at the files Tyler had stolen, he was broadcasting them. I turned to look at him, my vision tunneled. The rage I felt was not hot. It was absolute zero. It froze everything inside me. "You are the node," I whispered. Evan sighed, his shoulders slumping. He leaned back against the filing cabinet, crossing his arms. "Okay," he said. "Okay, fine. You caught me. I am doing a data cleanup job." "Data cleanup?" I asked. "You are uploading federal compliance documents to an external server. It is not federal documents. Sarah, it is just shipping patterns," he snapped, his voice rising. "It is just data. Nobody gets hurt. It is victimless. Who is paying you?" I asked. He looked away. "A consulting group. They just want to optimize their routes. They need to know where the audits are happening so they can avoid delays. That is all. It is efficiency." "Sarah, avoid delays." I said, "You mean smuggle?" "You are helping them smuggle things. I am helping us," he shouted. The words echoed off the concrete walls. He gestured around the room, at the cheap furniture, at the scanner. "Do you have any idea how much debt we are in?" he asked. "Do you?" "We have a mortgage," I said. "We have car payments. We are fine. We are drowning," he yelled. "I have $40,000 on credit cards you do not know about. I made some bad trades last year. Crypto. It tanked. I was trying to fix it before you found out." I stared at him. $40,000. He had sold my career, my safety, and my brother's freedom for the price of a mid-range sedan. "So you met a man named Caleb." I said. "He met me," Evan corrected, his voice dropping. "He found me online, on a forum for IT contractors. He said he had easy work, high pay. All I had to do was set up a server and process some files. And then he asked for my files." I said, "He asked for Blue Harbor data." Evan said, "He knew you worked there. He said if I could get a sample, the contract would double. So you sent Tyler." I said, I felt sick. The betrayal was layering itself like sediment. Evan looked at his shoes. "I didn't send Tyler. Caleb suggested it. He said Tyler was accessible. He said Tyler went to that gym. He said it would be safer if the physical access came from someone else. Plausible deniability. You knew." I said. My voice was a whisper. "You knew Tyler was being groomed. You knew he was going to steal from me. And you let it happen." "I thought Tyler would just grab some templates," Evan pleaded. "I didn't think he would trigger a canary marker. I didn't think the NSCB would get involved. It was supposed to be clean." "Sarah, just a quick copy-paste. I get paid. I pay off the debt, and nobody ever knows. Nobody ever knows." I repeated, "Except me. When I get fired, when I get arrested, I was going to protect you," he insisted. "That is why I told you to stop digging. If you had just let it go, I could have wiped the logs on this end. I could have made it disappear. But you had to play detective." He was blaming me. He was standing in a warehouse he had rented to commit a felony, and he was blaming me for noticing. I looked at the wall calendar again. I saw a date circled in red marker. Tuesday. Shipment. Tuesday was tomorrow. They are moving something tomorrow, aren't they? I asked. "That is why you are uploading the files now. They need the audit codes for tomorrow." Evan didn't answer. He just stared at the floor. I looked at my husband. I tried to find the man I had married, the man who brought me soup when I was sick, the man who cried at our wedding. I couldn't find him. I saw only a stranger in a blue button-down shirt who looked at me like I was a liability. "Evan," I said, "I have one question." He looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. He thought I was going to ask if he loved me. He thought I was going to ask if we could fix this. "Did you ever tell them my passwords?" I asked. The room went silent. The hum of the lights seemed to get louder. Evan opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked at the scanner. He looked at the door. He did not look at me. He didn't have to speak. The silence was a scream. He hadn't just used Tyler. He had given them the keys. He had given them my login, my authentication tokens, everything. Tyler was just the physical mule to get the data out of the air-gapped laptop. Evan had provided the digital credentials to decrypt it. He had stripped me naked before I even knew I was in the room. I nodded slowly. "Okay," I said. "Sarah, wait," he said, stepping toward me. We can figure this out. I can stop the upload. We can leave town for a few days until this blows over. Don't touch me, I said. He froze. I am leaving. I said, where are you going? You can't go home. Marla said the agents are coming. I am going home, I said, because unlike you, I have nothing to hide anymore. I walked to the door. I didn't look back. I heard him call my name, a desperate, pathetic sound, but I didn't stop. I walked out into the cool evening air, got into my car, and locked the doors. I drove away from the warehouse. I did not look in the rearview mirror. I left him there with his scanner and his debt and his treason. The drive back to Maple Crossing was a blur. I felt hollowed out, as if someone had reached inside my chest and scooped out all the soft parts, leaving only bone and wire. When I turned onto my street, the streetlights were on. The neighborhood looked exactly the same as it had this morning. The same manicured lawns, the same SUVs and driveways. It was a terrifying illusion of safety. I pulled into my driveway. My mother's car was parked haphazardly at the curb, one wheel up on the grass. She was standing on the porch. She was wearing her coat, clutching her purse to her chest, even from the car. I could see that she was shaking. I got out and walked up the path. "Mom?" I said. She turned to me. Her face was streaked with mascara. Her eyes were wild. "Sarah," she choked out. "What is it?" I asked. "Is it the police? Are they here?" "It is Tyler," she sobbed. "What about Tyler?" "He is gone." She said, "Gone?" I asked. "You mean he left?" "He went out for a walk," she cried. "After you left. He said he needed air." That was hours ago. "Sarah, he is not answering his phone." I felt a cold dread settle in my stomach. Tyler didn't go for walks. Tyler sat on the couch and waited for the world to happen to him. I pulled out my phone and dialed his number, straight to voicemail. "Maybe he just turned his phone off," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Maybe he went to a friend's house." "No," my mother wailed. "I tracked his phone. We are on the family plan. Remember? I tracked it. Where is he?" "His phone is on the highway," she whispered. "Heading south. It is moving fast. Sarah. And he doesn't have his car. His car is still in my driveway. He doesn't have his car. That meant someone else was driving him." I thought of the calendar in the warehouse. Tuesday. Shipment. I thought of Caleb Wren, or Chris, or whatever his name was. He needed a scapegoat. He needed someone to hold the bag when the NSCB kicked down the door. Or maybe he needed someone to open a physical lock that required a fingerprint. They took him, I said. My mother grabbed the lapels of my jacket. "Who took him?" "Sarah, what is happening? You said this was just about files." I looked at my mother. I looked at the woman who had spent 30 years telling me to be the responsible one, to fix the problems, to not make waves. I looked at the woman who had told me not to ruin Tyler's life over drama. The drama had arrived. It was wearing boots and driving a van south on the highway. "Go inside." "Mom," I said gently. "No, you have to find him. I am going to handle it." I said, "But you need to go inside and lock the door. Do not open it for anyone, not even Evan, especially not Evan." "Why not Evan?" she asked. Confused? "Just do it." "Mom?" I pushed her gently toward the door and waited until she was inside. Then I walked into my own house. It felt violated. The air felt stale. My phone rang in my hand. It was Marla again. I answered. "Sarah," Marla said. Her tone was no longer warning. It was final. "The NSCB agents are requesting a formal statement. They are 20 minutes out. They want to meet you at your residence." I stood in my hallway, looking at the photos on the wall. Photos of me and Evan on our honeymoon in Hawaii. Photos of Tyler graduating high school. Photos of a life that no longer existed. "I cannot give a statement," I said. "Sarah, this is not optional." Marla snapped. "If you refuse, they will detain you. You need to tell them what you know." "I can't," I said. My throat felt like it was closing up. If I told them what I knew, I would be handing them my husband. I would be handing them my brother. I would be admitting that my negligence had allowed a domestic security threat to metastasize in the suburbs. Any sentence I spoke would be evidence. Evidence against the people I was supposed to love. Evidence against myself. I need a lawyer. I said, "You need a miracle." "Sarah," Marla said, "stay put. Do not leave the house." She hung up. I walked into my office. I don't know why. Maybe I was looking for comfort in the familiar geometry of the room. I sat down in my chair. The room was dark, lit only by the street lamp outside the window. I looked at the desk. I looked at the space where the router used to be plugged in. Something caught my eye, a glint of plastic near the baseboard. I knelt down. There, plugged into the surge protector, hidden behind the thick bundle of cables that fed my monitor and printer, was a small black box. It was about the size of a matchbox. It had a single, tiny green light that was blinking. Blink, blink, blink. I reached out and touched it. It was warm. It was a packet sniffer, a hardware keylogger, a bridge. I recognized the model. You could buy them online for $50. If you plugged it into a network, it captured every keystroke, every password, every packet of data that flowed through the lines, and broadcast it to a nearby receiver. It wasn't Tyler who had planted this. Tyler wouldn't know how to hide it. He wouldn't know which port to use. Evan. Evan had planted this months ago. He hadn't just relied on Tyler's clumsy theft. He had been watching me work for months. Every time I typed a password, every time I opened a confidential report, this little black box had caught it and sent it to the warehouse. The basic work files were a distraction. The resume was a cover story. I had been living in a glass house, and my husband was selling tickets to the show. I pulled the device out of the socket. The green light died. I held it in my hand. It weighed almost nothing, but it felt heavier than a brick. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I think I had run out of emotions. I had reached the bottom of the well. I went to the kitchen. I found a Ziploc bag and dropped the device inside. I sealed it. I sat at the kitchen table. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat there in the dark, watching the headlights of passing cars sweep across the walls. Every time a car slowed down, my muscles tensed. Was it the NSCB? Was it the men who had taken Tyler? Was it Evan coming back to explain? I was the responsible one. That was my identity. I was the one who kept the family safe, but as I sat there, gripping the plastic bag, listening to the silence of my empty, broken home, I felt a crack running through the center of that identity. I hadn't kept anyone safe. I had been the perfect mark. I had built a fortress of rules and passwords, and I had handed the keys to the enemy because he smiled at me and promised to take out the trash. I wasn't the responsible one anymore. I was the witness, and I was waiting for the end of the world to knock on my door. Dawn arrived not with a burst of light, but with a slow, bruising grayness that seeped through the kitchen blinds. I had not moved from the table in 6 hours. The plastic bag containing the black packet sniffer sat in front of me like a specimen from a crime scene. My coffee was cold, a dark, stagnant pool in my favorite mug. My phone, lying face down on the placemat, vibrated against the wood. It was not a ring. It was a single, sustained buzz indicating a voicemail had just been deposited. I had not heard the call come in, or perhaps I had zoned out so completely that the ringing had registered as just another layer of the tinnitus screaming in my ears. I picked up the phone. The screen was bright in the dim room. Unknown number. I pressed play and held the speaker to my ear. Sarah. It was Tyler. His voice sounded thin, stretched tight over a frame of pure panic. There was wind in the background, a rushing sound like highway traffic or open fields. "I am okay," he said. The words came out in a rush, stumbling over each other. "Do not call Mom. She will just freak out. And do not tell Evan I called. I messed up. Sarah, I messed up so bad. He said he could fix it if I just—" There was a scuffling sound, a sharp intake of breath, and then the line went dead. The message ended. I sat there, the phone pressed to my cheek, listening to the silence of the kitchen. Do not tell Evan. Tyler knew, wherever he was, whatever compromised hell he had stumbled into. He had realized the truth that had taken me 33 years to see. Evan was not the safety net. Evan was the trap. I stood up. My legs were stiff, my joints aching as if I had run a marathon. I needed to move. I needed to stop waiting for the NSCB to kick down my door and start building a defense. Marla had told me to stay put, but Marla was operating under the assumption that I was a compliant employee who had made a mistake. She did not know I was living in a house wired for surveillance by my own husband. I grabbed the Ziploc bag with the device. I grabbed my purse. I walked out to my car. Checking the street. It was empty. The morning paper had not even been delivered yet. I drove to Leah's condo. I did not call first. I knew she would be awake. Leah ran 5 miles every morning at 5:30. When she opened the door, she was dressed in her running gear, her hair pulled back in a severe ponytail. She took one look at my face and stepped aside. "Coffee is brewing," she said. I walked into her living room, which was pristine and smelled of lemongrass. It was a different universe from the toxic silence of my home. I placed the plastic bag on her glass coffee table. "What is that?" she asked, eyeing the black box. "It is a packet sniffer," I said. "I found it plugged into the power strip behind my desk. Evan put it there. He has been recording my keystrokes for months." Leah looked at the device, then at me. Her expression hardened. The sympathy that had been there yesterday was gone, replaced by the razor-sharp focus that made her the most terrifying divorce attorney in the city. "Okay," she said. "We are done with the whine and the crying. We are done improvising. You are in legal jeopardy. Sarah, this is not a marital dispute anymore. This is a federal case, and you are currently the primary suspect because all the credentials belong to you. I need a lawyer." I said, "You need a shark," she corrected. "And I do not practice criminal defense or employment risk, but I know someone who does." She picked up her phone and dialed. She spoke in low, rapid-fire sentences, using words like imminent indictment and national security implications. She hung up and looked at me. "Be at this address in 45 minutes. Her name is Nina Hargrove. She is expensive, she is mean, and she is the only person in this city who can keep you out of a holding cell today." I drove to the address Leah sent me. It was not a glass skyscraper downtown. It was a brownstone in the old legal district, discreet and intimidating. Nina Hargrove was a woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair cut in a sharp bob and glasses that looked like they could cut glass. She did not offer me coffee. She sat behind a large mahogany desk, listening as I recounted the last 48 hours. I told her about the files, the gym, the warehouse, the device, and the voicemail. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and steepled her fingers. "You are in a very precarious position, Mrs. Simmons," she said. Her voice was dry, devoid of warmth. "I know." I said, "I didn't steal anything. I was used." Nina sighed. She took off her glasses and polished them with a microfiber cloth. "Let me explain something to you about the federal government," she said. "They do not care about your narrative. They care about chain of custody. You signed the non-disclosure agreements. You held the security tokens. Your network was the point of exfiltration. In their eyes, you are either the architect of this breach, or you are so criminally negligent that the distinction is irrelevant. But my husband—" I started. "Your husband is a problem," she interrupted. "But he is also your husband. Until you file for divorce or he is formally charged, spousal privilege makes things messy. But listen to me closely. Good intentions do not block warrants. Being a victim of emotional manipulation does not scrub an IP log." She leaned forward. "You need to stop acting like a wife trying to save her marriage and start acting like a witness trying to stay out of prison. You need to document everything. You need to surrender that device to the authorities the moment they ask for it, but not a second before, because right now it is the only leverage you have to prove you were surveilled." "What do I do about my brother?" I asked. "He left me a voicemail. He is scared." Nina looked at me with pity, which was worse than her coldness. "Your brother is a co-conspirator. Sarah, whether he meant to be or not, if he contacts you again, you tell him to turn himself in. Do not help him hide. Do not send him money. Do not pick him up. If you do, you are aiding a fugitive. She wrote a number on a card and slid it across the desk. If the agents arrive, you call this number. You say, "I am represented by counsel and I will not answer questions without her present." Then you shut your mouth. Can you do that? I looked at the card. It felt heavy in my hand. Yes, I said. I left Nina's office with a feeling of cold clarity. The fog of confusion that had clouded my mind since Sunday had lifted, revealed a landscape that was jagged and dangerous. I had one more stop to make before I went home to wait for the end. I drove to my mother's house. She opened the door before I even knocked. She looked terrible. Her eyes were swollen almost shut, and she was wearing a bathrobe at 11 in the morning. "Did you find him?" she asked, grabbing my arm. "Did you find Tyler?" I walked past her into the living room. It smelled of lavender and stale anxiety. I sat down on the floral sofa where, for 3 decades, we had played out the script of our family life. "I did not find him." I said, "But he called me. Is he okay?" She sat down next to me, clutching a tissue. "Where is he?" "I don't know where he is, Mom, but I know why he's running." My mother stiffened. "Sarah, please, don't start with the accusations again. He is just scared. He probably thinks you are still mad about the computer." I turned to face her. I looked at the woman who had taught me that keeping the peace was more important than telling the truth. "It is not about the computer, Mom. It is about the warehouse." She blinked. "What warehouse?" "The warehouse where Evan has been uploading my work files to a criminal network for 6 months. I said, "The warehouse where he and a man named Caleb Wren groomed Tyler to be their mule." My mother recoiled as if I had slapped her. "That is crazy. Evan is a good man. He loves you. He loves this family. Evan is $40,000 in debt," I said, my voice flat and hard. "He built a packet sniffer and hid it in my office. He used Tyler because he knew Tyler was desperate for approval and wouldn't ask questions. He sacrificed your son to pay off his credit cards." "No," she whispered. "No, you are lying. You are just trying to hurt us because you are in trouble at work." I pulled the Ziploc bag from my purse and tossed it onto the coffee table. The black device slid across the glass and hit the porcelain shepherdess figurine my mother loved. "That is the device," I said. "I found it last night. Tyler didn't plant that. Evan did." My mother stared at the black box. She looked at me, and for the first time, I saw the denial crack. It didn't crumble all at once. It fractured. She saw the exhaustion in my face. She saw the lack of anger. I wasn't screaming. I wasn't being dramatic. I was reporting a death. "Why?" she whispered. "Because we were easy," I said. "Because you taught us that boundaries were mean. Because we let people walk all over us in the name of love." Evan saw that. He used it. I stood up. Good. "The federal agents are coming. Mom, they are coming for me, and they will probably come for Tyler." "Sarah," she gasped, reaching for my hand. I pulled my hand away. "If Tyler calls you," I said, "you tell him to go to the nearest police station and surrender. You do not tell him to run. You do not tell him to come home. You tell him to stop digging." I walked to the door. "Sarah," she cried out, "what are we going to do?" "I don't know what you're going to do," I said, opening the door, "but I'm going home to lock my doors." I returned to my house in the early afternoon. The silence was still there, but now it felt like the quiet before a thunderstorm. The air pressure was dropping. I checked my phone. No texts from Evan, no texts from Marla. I went into the kitchen and poured the cold coffee down the sink. I started to wash the mug, scrubbing it with a ferocity that threatened to break the ceramic. A noise at the back door made me freeze. It was a scratch, then a soft knock. I turned off the tap. I picked up a steak knife from the drying rack. I walked to the back door, the one that led to the patio, through the glass. I saw a figure. It was Tyler. He looked like he had been through a war. His clothes were dirty, his hair matted. He was shivering, even though it wasn't that cold. I unlocked the door and pulled him inside. "Tyler," I breathed. He collapsed against the counter, sliding down until he was sitting on the floor. He put his head in his hands. They let me go. He sobbed. Who? I asked, kneeling beside him. Who let you go? The guys in the van, he said. They drove me 3 hours south. Then they stopped at a rest stop and told me to get out. They said the job was burned. They said I was a liability. Caleb? I asked. He wasn't there, Tyler said, lifting his head. His face was streaked with grime. It was just 2 guys I never saw before. But Caleb texted me. What did he say? He said he has the map, Tyler whispered. The map? Tyler nodded. His eyes were wide, unfocused. That is what he wanted. Sarah, it wasn't the templates. He didn't care about the templates. He made me open the attachments. I frowned. The attachments in the Garnet folder were just spreadsheets, audit codes. He wanted the shipment route. Tyler said, he kept asking about the blind route, the one that isn't on the public manifest. He said the attachments had the code to unlock the tracking for it. My blood ran cold. The blind route. I knew what he was talking about. It was a specific subset of the compliance data. Blue Harbor insured high-value cargo, pharmaceutical prototypes, rare earth metals, sometimes sensitive government equipment. When those shipments moved, they moved on blind routes, pathways that were digitally scrubbed from the standard tracking systems. Only the auditor and the client knew where the truck was. If Caleb had the code, he could see the invisible truck. He is going to hijack it. I said. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. It wasn't just smuggling. It was a heist, a targeted interception of a federal shipment. That is why the NSCB is involved, I whispered. They aren't just mad about a data leak. They have a shipment in transit right now. Today, Tuesday. Tyler grabbed my wrist. Sarah, Evan knows. I know he knows. I said, no. Tyler shook his head violently. I mean, Evan is the one who told them which file to look for. Caleb didn't know where the map was. He was getting frustrated. I heard him on the phone with someone. He was yelling. Then he put the phone on speaker. And I heard Evan's voice. Evan told him to look in the subfolder marked Garnet Auxiliary. I closed my eyes. Evan hadn't just provided the access. He had provided the technical support for the theft. He had guided the weapon to the target. He is going to fix it, Tyler said, his voice trembling. That is what Evan told me. He said if I just did what Caleb wanted, he would pay off my student loans. He said he would pay off your mortgage. He said we would all be free. Free, I repeated. The word tasted like bile. We aren't free, Tyler. We are accessories. A car pulled into the driveway. I stood up and looked out the kitchen window. It was the silver sedan. Evan. He got out of the car. He wasn't running, but he was walking with a frantic energy. He looked like a man who was trying to outrun an avalanche. He came to the back door, bypassing the front. He saw us through the glass. He saw me standing over Tyler. He tried the handle. It was locked. Sarah, he yelled, his voice muffled by the glass. Sarah, let me in. I stood there, holding the steak knife. I didn't realize I was still holding it until I saw the reflection of the blade in the window. Open the door, Evan shouted. He pounded on the glass with his fist. We have to go. We have to leave right now. I walked to the door. I did not unlock it. I stood 2 inches from the glass, looking him in the eye. He looked desperate. His hair was wild. His shirt unbuttoned at the collar. Sarah, please, he begged. They are scrubbing the operation. The warehouse is being torched. We have to get out before the connection is made. I have cash. I have a plan. You don't have a plan. Evan, I said. My voice was calm. It surprised me how calm it was. You have a getaway fantasy. I did it for us, he screamed. Why can't you see that? I did it so we wouldn't drown. You drowned us, I said. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the weakness that I had mistaken for gentleness. I saw the cowardice I had mistaken for caution. You don't get access to me anymore, I said. I turned the deadbolt, locking it more securely. Evan stared at me. For a moment, his face crumbled into something like grief. Then it hardened into anger. He kicked the door, a dull thud that shook the frame. Fine, he yelled. Rot here then. He turned and ran back toward his car. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. It was a text from Marla. They are moving now. Do not leave your home. Do not warn anyone. The message was stark. They are moving now. I looked at Tyler. He was still sitting on the floor, hugging his knees. They are coming, I said. Tyler looked up. He listened. At first, I heard nothing, just the wind in the trees, the distant hum of the highway. Then I heard it, a low wail, rising and falling, then another, then a chorus. Sirens. They were not the polite chirps of a traffic stop. They were the aggressive, converging roar of a raid. Evan was backing out of the driveway. He was trying to turn the car around. He was too late. A black SUV swerved around the corner, jumping the curb and blocking the driveway. Then another, and a third. Men in tactical gear poured out of the vehicles. They didn't look like police officers. They looked like soldiers. Their jackets had yellow lettering, NSC-B, Tactical Response. Evan's car stopped. He threw his hands up. I watched through the window as they pulled him out of the car. They didn't ask him to step out. They dragged him. They slammed him against the hood of the silver sedan. Tyler stood up and stood beside me. He was shaking so hard his teeth chattered. They got him. Tyler whispered, I watched them cuff Evan. I watched my husband, the man I had promised to love and cherish, being pressed face first into the metal of his car. They are coming for me, Tyler said. He sounded resigned. I looked at the scene outside. The agents weren't stopping with Evan. A second team was moving up the walkway. They were carrying a battering ram, though they wouldn't need it because I hadn't locked the front door. They were moving with weapons drawn. They weren't moving like they were apprehending a confused kid who stole a file. They were moving like they were securing a hostile compound. I looked at Tyler. I looked at the boy who had just wanted to be useful. They aren't coming for you. Ty, I said. The realization hit me with the finality of a closing coffin lid. Evan was the tech. Tyler was the mule. But I was the source. My name was on the login. My biometric token authorized the breach. In the eyes of the agency storming my lawn, I wasn't the victim of a husband's betrayal. I was the insider threat. I was the rogue agent who had sold the blind route to a domestic terror cell. Tyler looked at me. His eyes were huge. They are coming for you, he whispered. The front door burst open. The sound of boots on hardwood floors filled the house. Federal agents! Hands in the air! The shout echoed through the hallway, shattering the last illusion of my safe, quiet life. I looked at the kitchen door. I looked at the hallway where the dark shapes were advancing. I felt my life narrowing. It was no longer a wide road of possibilities. It was a single, irreversible corridor, and at the end of it, there was no light. I raised my hands. The sound of the front door hitting the wall was not a bang. It was a physical concussion that shook the floorboards beneath my feet. I stood in the center of my kitchen, my hands raised above my head, watching the sanctity of my home evaporate. The men who poured into the hallway moved with a fluidity that was terrifying to witness. They were not running. They were flowing, a river of dark gray uniforms and matte black body armor that absorbed the afternoon light. Federal agents, a voice roared, deep and resonant, filling every corner of the house. Secure the perimeter. Clear left. Clear right. I did not scream. I did not move. I looked at Tyler. He was standing near the refrigerator, his hands trembling so violently that they looked like they were vibrating. His face was the color of old paper. Two agents entered the kitchen. They did not look at me as a person. They looked at me as a kinetic threat, a biological variable in a tactical equation. One of them, a woman with her hair pulled back in a severe bun, pointed a short-barreled rifle at the floor, but kept her eyes locked on my chest. "Turn around," she commanded. "Interlace your fingers behind your head." I obeyed. My movements were slow, deliberate. I felt the rough hands of the second agent grab my wrists. He didn't slam me against the counter. But the restraint was absolute. He patted me down, waist, pockets, legs, with a professional detachment that made me feel like an object. "Clear," the agent shouted. I was turned around. My hands were not cuffed, but the agent held my arm with a grip that promised violence if I twitched. I looked out the window. The quiet cul-de-sac of Maple Crossing had been transformed into a staging ground. 3 black SUVs were parked at jagged angles. Blocking the street, neighbors were standing on their porches, phones out, recording. Mrs. Gable from next door was peering through her blinds, her hand over her mouth. In the middle of the driveway, Evan was being pressed against the hood of the silver sedan. He was shouting, his head twisted to the side, his cheek mashed against the hot metal. "I was just doing tech work," he yelled, his voice cracking with desperation. "I am a contractor. You have the wrong guy. I can explain." An agent zip-tied his hands behind his back. They pulled him upright. Evan looked wild, his eyes darting around, searching for an audience that would believe him. He saw me in the window. "Sarah!" he screamed. "Sarah, tell them it was just data cleanup." I watched him. I felt a strange, cold sensation in my chest. It was grief, but it was not for him. I was not grieving the man who had sold my safety for $40,000. I was grieving the lie. I was mourning the version of my life where I believed that love was a shield. I had thought that if I loved him enough, if I was steady enough, I could keep us safe. But love was not a shield. It was a blindfold. They shoved Evan into the back of one of the SUVs. The door slammed shut, cutting off his voice. Inside the kitchen, the atmosphere shifted from dynamic entry to static control. "Sit down," the female agent ordered, pointing to the kitchen chair. I sat. Tyler was guided to the other side of the room, separated from me by the island. An agent stood between us, a physical wall preventing any communication. Tyler looked at me, his eyes wet and terrified. He looked like a child who had broken a window. Only now he realized the window was the entire world. He is not evil, I thought, looking at his shaking shoulders. He is just reckless. He is desperate. He is a man who never learned that actions have mechanics, that cause has effect. But as I watched the agent open Tyler's backpack and dump the contents on the floor, I realized that the law does not distinguish between malice and stupidity. The consequences are the same size, regardless of the intent. A man walked into the kitchen. He was not wearing tactical gear. He wore a dark suit and a blue tie. He looked like an accountant who carried a badge. He pulled a chair out and sat across from me. He placed a thick file folder on the table. "Mrs. Simmons," he said. His voice was calm, almost conversational. "I am Agent Miller with the National Security Compliance Bureau. Do you understand why we are here?" I looked at his hands. They were clean, manicured. "You are here because of the files," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Flat, hollow, because of the blind root. Agent Miller raised an eyebrow. He opened the folder. "We are here because of a significant exfiltration of Class 4 logistics data," he said. He pulled out a piece of paper and slid it across the table. It was a printout of a map. It showed the globe. On it were dozens of red dots. "This is the spread of the Garnet package since it left your home network on Sunday night," he said. I stared at the map. I expected to see one dot, the warehouse on Industrial Way. There were red dots in 3 different states. There was a dot in a server farm in Eastern Europe. There was a dot in a port city in South America. The leak had not stayed in the warehouse. Your husband was uploading the data to a mirrored server, Miller said, tapping the paper, but that server was not secure. It was a Dropbox. Once the data hit the node, it was scraped by 3 separate automated bots. The map you mentioned, the blind route for the shipment, has been accessed by 6 different entities in the last 12 hours. I felt the blood drain from my face. It went viral. I whispered, "It went market," Miller corrected. "The route for a transport carrying sensitive defense prototypes is now available to the highest bidder on the dark web. We have had to ground the shipment. We have had to initiate a total recall of the assets. The cost of this breach is currently estimated in the millions, and that is just the financial cost." He leaned forward. "We found the packet sniffer in your bag. Mrs. Simmons, we know your husband installed it. We know your brother physically accessed the machine, but you are the custodian. I wanted to explain. I wanted to tell him about the dinner, about the exhaustion, about how I just wanted everyone to be happy. I wanted to tell him I was the victim here, but the words died in my throat. I looked at the agent standing guard. I looked at the rifle. I realized that my desire to explain, to smooth things over, was the exact flaw that had allowed this to happen. I had spent my life smiling and swallowing my boundaries. I did not do this, I said. Miller looked at me. He did not look impressed. We found your credentials used to authorize the decryption, he said. We found your biometric signature on the release forms. My husband? I started. Your husband says you were partners, Miller said. He is in the car right now telling my team that this was a joint venture to pay off household debt. He says you knew about the warehouse. He says you drove there yesterday to check on the operation. I felt a spike of nausea. Evan was not just a coward. He was a drowning man trying to climb on top of me to breathe. He is lying. I said. Miller shrugged. Maybe, but the logs show you were there. Your phone GPS places you at the warehouse. You didn't call the police. You didn't call us. You went home and waited. That looks like damage control. Mrs. Simmons? Not innocence. I looked at Tyler. He was weeping silently, his head on the table. He is terrified. I thought, but Evan is calculating. He is building a narrative where I am the mastermind and he is just the tech support. A commotion at the front door drew Miller's attention. Let me through. I need to see her. It was Marla. Miller nodded to the agent at the door. Let her in. Marla walked into the kitchen. She stopped dead when she saw me. She was wearing her office blazer, but her face was pale, stripped of its usual professional veneer. She looked at the agents, at the rifles, at the map on the table. Sarah, she said. Her voice was a whisper. Marla. I said, I am sorry. She shook her head. A short, sharp motion. Do not apologize to me. She looked at Agent Miller. I am the team lead for Blue Harbor, she said. I am here to facilitate the handover of the hardware assets. Miller nodded. We have secured the laptop and the router. We are scrubbing the local storage now. Marla looked back at me. Her eyes were not angry. They were sad. It was a deep, pitying sadness that was harder to bear than rage. You know this ends it, right? She said. The career, the license, even if you stay out of jail. Sarah, you are uninsurable. You are done. I nodded. I knew. I could feel the severance like a physical amputation. The identity I had built, Sarah the professional, Sarah the reliable one, was gone. It had been dismantled file by file. Is there anything else? Miller asked Marla. Marla hesitated. She looked at me, then at the folder on the table. There is one anomaly, she said. What is it? Miller asked. We ran a historical audit on Sarah's account. Marla said, we wanted to see if there were any prior breaches, any test runs before the big exfiltration on Sunday. And? Miller asked. I looked at Marla. I felt a flicker of confusion. There were no prior breaches. I was careful. We found activity going back 4 months. Marla said. I frowned. That is impossible. The packet sniffer. Evan said he only installed it a few weeks ago. This wasn't the packet sniffer. Marla said. She pulled a piece of paper from her pocket. This was direct sharing. Someone was printing documents, not digital downloads. Physical prints. Printing? I asked. I never print work documents at home. I don't even have a printer in my office. Marla looked at me. The logs show the print commands coming from a device on your guest network. A tablet. My guest network. I tried to think. Who used my guest network? Tyler? No. Tyler used the main Wi-Fi. I had given him the password years ago. Evan used the main network. Who used the guest network? A tablet. Marla repeated. The device name is Ellen's iPad. My breath hitched. Ellen. My mother. I stared at Marla. My mother? Agent Miller leaned forward. Your mother has been accessing your work files? She doesn't know how. I stammered. She barely knows how to use email. She plays solitaire. She looks at Facebook. She's been printing documents. Marla insisted. Specifically, the employment resource templates, the hiring guides, the background check protocols. I felt the room spin. My mother was outside. I had sent her into her house. Bring her in. Miller ordered the agents. No, I said, standing up. Sit down, the female agent barked. Stepping forward. Please, I said. She is old. She doesn't understand. Bring her in, Miller repeated. 2 agents left the house. Moments later, the front door opened again. My mother walked in. She was flanked by the agents. She looked small, frail in her floral bathrobe. Her eyes were wide, darting from the guns to me, then to Tyler, then to the man in the suit. Sarah? She whimpered. What is happening? Why did they take Evan? Mrs. Simmons? Agent Miller said. Please sit down. He pointed to the chair next to me. My mother sat. She reached for my hand. I let her take it. Her skin was ice cold. Ma'am, do you own an iPad? Miller asked. Yes, she said. Her voice was trembling. I use it for my recipes. And my church group. Do you use it at Sarah's house? Yes, on Sundays. When we have dinner, Miller opened the folder again. He pulled out a log. Mrs. Simmons, did you print documents from Sarah's computer network? My mother looked at me. She looked confused, innocent. I printed some flyers, she said, for the church. Did you print anything else? Miller asked. Did you print any documents that belonged to Blue Harbor Risk Solutions? My mother hesitated. A flush of color rose in her cheeks. Well, not for me, she said. For who? Miller pressed. For Pastor Pierce, she said. The name hung in the air. Pastor Pierce, Roland Pierce. He was the head of the Cedar Gate Fellowship, the small community church my mother attended 3 times a week. He was a charismatic man, always organizing food drives and job fairs. Pastor Pierce? I asked. Mom, why would you print my work files for Pastor Pierce? He asked me to, she said, looking at me with pleading eyes. He is helping so many people. Sarah. He runs that employment workshop for men who are getting out of prison. He helps them find jobs. So? I asked. So, he told me that the hardest part is the paperwork. She explained. He said the background checks and the compliance forms are so confusing that these poor men get rejected before they even start. He said if he just had some examples of what the big companies look for, he could help them fix their applications. I felt a coldness that went deeper than bone. He wanted examples, I whispered. He knew you worked in risk. My mother continued. He said, Ellen, your daughter is so successful. I bet she has the standard forms. If you could just print a few out, strictly for educational purposes, we could help so many families. She squeezed my hand. I was just trying to help. Sarah, it was for charity. I didn't think it was a big deal. It was just paperwork. I looked at Marla. Marla's face was ashen. The background check protocols. Marla whispered, the vetting standards. I looked at Agent Miller. He was already typing on his phone. Pastor Roland Pierce, Miller said into the phone. Run a cross-check against the domestic watch list. See if he has any flags for identity fraud or document foraging. He paused, listening to the voice on the other end. He looked up at us. His expression was grim. Roland Pierce is a known associate of the Wren Syndicate, Miller said. He runs a document mill. He uses the church as a front to sell clean identities to people who can't pass a background check. He looked at my mother. You weren't helping people get jobs. Mrs. Simmons, you were giving a forger the answer key to the exam. You gave him the exact criteria Blue Harbor uses to filter out criminals. He has been using your documents to help felons bypass security screenings for 4 months. My mother dropped my hand. She put her hands to her mouth. No, she whispered. He is a man of God. He is a facilitator, Miller said. And you were his source. I looked at my mother. It wasn't Tyler. It wasn't just Evan. It was her. The breach hadn't started on Sunday night. It had started months ago, over pot roast and coffee. While I was in the kitchen doing the dishes, my mother, in her desire to be important, to be helpful, to be part of the community, had been stealing from me. She had handed over the security protocols of my company to a man who sold fake lives, and because she did that, the Wren Syndicate knew who I was. They knew I was a soft target. That was how they knew to target Tyler. That was how they knew to approach Evan. My mother had opened the door. I looked at her, sobbing quietly into her hands. I looked at Tyler, broken and terrified across the table. I thought of Evan, screaming lies in the back of a federal vehicle. I sat in the middle of the wreckage. I realized then that the raid was not the tragedy. The raid was just the cleanup. The tragedy was the family. The tragedy was the love that refused to respect a locked door. The tragedy was the assumption that because we shared blood, we shared a conscience. Agent Miller stood up. "We are going to need to take everyone in for statements," he said. I stood up. I didn't look at my mother. I didn't look at Tyler. I walked toward the door. The agent with the rifle stepped aside to let me pass. I walked out into the sunlight. It was blinding. The neighbors were still watching. Mrs. Gable was filming. I saw Evan's car being towed away. I saw the agents carrying boxes of my files, my laptop, my life out of the house. I stopped on the porch. I took a deep breath of the cool air. I was 33 years old. I had no job. I had no husband. I had no family I could trust. I was a case number in a federal investigation. But as I looked at the empty street, I felt a strange, terrifying lightness. The secrets were gone. The boundaries were finally, brutally drawn. I was alone. And for the first time in my life, I was safe. Thank you so much for listening to Family Access to my basic work files until Homeland Security teams arrived. This story was a journey into how small boundary violations can spiral into absolute catastrophe. I hope Sarah's story resonates with anyone who has ever felt the weight of being the responsible one. I would love to hear from you in the comments. Where are you listening from? Have you ever had a family member overstep a boundary that caused real-world problems? Let's talk about it. If you enjoyed this story, please make sure to subscribe to Revenge Stories and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new drama. Share your thoughts in English in the comments below. I read every single one. Until next time, keep your passwords safe and your boundaries stronger.